Alrighty, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well and had a great weekend. We're gapping down here over the weekend on Friday. We had some news at the very end, end of day, basically in the in the after hours. We end up having a credit downgrade on the U.S., so that's why we're dropping here over the weekend as well. We'll talk about that here in a second. Today is May the 19th. We actually do not have, we have very minimal red folder news this week. So we'll talk about what we're looking for, at least on the overall markets, what's going to happen, at least with this downgrade over the weekend, and if we're going to be looking for potential kind of continuation on the higher time frame. So before we get into that, good morning. What's up, everyone? What's up, B Roots? Session and TWS. I'm not exactly sure. On TWS, I don't think it has pre-market. The session breaks for, I think it's just all one session. So I know at least TradingView has it. Most other brokers, I think, offer it. You're gonna have to search that one up. What's up, JT? What's up, Martin? Dominic, K. What's up, Mila? Charles, Daniel, Damien, Robert, Ryan. What's up, Zena? Good morning. Sean. What's up, Monty? Good morning, Darth, Josh. Uh, what's up, Corv? What's up, Jenna? KO. What's up, Wayne? Miss Reggie, Audrey, Flint, Patrick. What's up, Darth? Katrina. What's up, A Tiny? What's up, Jeff, Melvin, Alex, Benjamin? Yeah, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's go over the weekly outlook and kind of some of the news events we're looking for coming into this week. So, weekly outlook for May the 23rd. Coming into this week, as you can see, we had some news over the weekend, but when we're talking about key economic events, at least for this week, we don't have too many. All we have is unemployment. That's going to be at 8:30 on Thursday, and then we also have 9:45 red folder news here as well. And then on Friday, there's nothing else. So really, just the red folder news this week is going to be unemployment, which isn't really going to affect the market as much, but we'll keep an eye on that. As for earnings season, basically earnings season's over now. Major earnings already reported. You still have a few smaller earnings here as well, like Home Depot. You have Zoom here on Wednesday before open. After close, we have Snow, we have Zoom, we have a couple other names here as well. But major earnings have already reported. Let's just go straight into the ES and let's get straight into the technical analysis. So, thesis for this coming week. Nice reclaim of the 5880 coming to last week. That was the higher time frame, January 13th lows. Once we're able to reclaim that level, you can now see we're having a nice pushback towards the upside. What I'd like to see moving forward is all dips get bought up for moves on the higher time frames back up in towards your 6052. So let's go on to the ES higher time frame. So currently kind of had all these levels. Let's remove all these levels. So if we're looking at this on the higher time frame, so far, as you can see, last week and the week before, once we're able to reclaim this 5560, end up having a nice break, reclaim, and then push back towards the upside. As you can see, currently, we're having a little bit of a reaction around this general area, which is this up close candle, also the area that we broke down from. So you can see so far a little bit of reaction off this general area, which is expected. So with the overall market, you can see the daily time frame is fairly bullish, right? After this reclaim of your 5560, we end up having this nice push higher. What I expect to happen is all dips get bought up. So any sort of dip in the overall markets, I like to see get bought up for continuation back towards the upside. So currently we're having a little bit of reaction off this 5918 coming into today, since we did have that downgrade over the weekend. The first level that we're going to be looking for, we're actually going to go on to the lower time frames, but really the major key levels on at least the daily chart that I like to see it moving forward. Number one is going to be this 5800. What I like to see is really this 5800 hold for this continued push back towards the upside. If this 5800 doesn't hold, the next level would be all the way back down in towards your 5680, and we'd still be bullish for this continued push higher. Because now, right, the overall markets, once we reclaim this general area, this is going to be their higher low key pivot point that we'd like to see hold for any sort of continued push. So let's go back onto the lower time frames here. And now let's go on to, now let's mark out a couple key areas for the ES. So coming into today, we have this area that we really broke down from. We can actually draw this out. Pretty big area. And now if we're looking for potential dips in the markets, the key area is going to be all the way down in towards your 5868. So this is your higher time frame point of interest. This is also your last week's basically your Wednesday's low, which we ended up holding for this continued push higher. So for ES, this is basically your higher low here on the overall markets. You can see the 1 hour is still very much intact. What we'll be looking for coming into today is a few things, right? We have our 5927 and really the low of the range, which is going to be this 5867. So if you want to see some more upside here on the overall markets, preferably we like to see the reclaim back above your 5930 for this pushback towards the upside. Currently, we are inside of this range that we're going to have established, which is your 5930, and then I expect the low is going to be all the way down towards your 5867. So in between here, this is kind of your last week's range that we do have. Preferably the best scenario, as I mentioned, is going to be the reclaim back above your 5930 for this continued pushback towards the upside. If we look for the SPY chart, the key levels in this case that we do have marked out, let me actually turn this, is going to be your Tuesdays and Wednesdays highs. So as you can see right here, Tuesday's highs was used as support later on into the week. You can see on Friday here as well, this 589 was used as support for this pushback up and towards your highs, which was your 594. Now you can see in the pre-market, we're having this pushback towards the lows. In this case, similar thing, the key level is going to be your Tuesday's highs of last week. So your Tuesday's highs of last week's, we do have multiple touches. So if we do want to see any sort of continuation here on the SPY, it's going to be the reclaim back above your 589 for this continued push back towards the upside. So that's going to be the key level. If we maintain heavy underneath your 589, then potentially we could see a little bit more of a continued push back down in towards your 584 here on the SPY. So we have a couple key levels. It's just going to be your Tuesday's highs, the exact same levels as last week, and your 584. If we reject 589, 584 most likely going to gravitate towards. If we can reclaim and hold, then we could see this potential gap fill back towards the upside and a push back up towards your last week's highs. So as you can see, that is going to be the key levels for SPY coming into this morning. Let's go on to the NQ chart. Thesis for this coming week, very bullish move towards the upside on the overall markets. Once we opened on Monday, we had a very nice push over the 2400. Now that we reclaim that level, what I'd like to see push forward towards the next levels on the higher time frames, being that 21600 and above. I like to see all dips get bought up. So let's go on to the NQ chart. Let's go on to the daily time frame here as well. Remove a few drawings. So for NQ, once we end up reclaiming key levels a couple weeks ago, we end up breaking back above your 2600 here as well. We're now just coming right back into this consolidation period. So this is the original period that we broke down from. So as you can see, we consolidated in this general area for a few months here on the overall markets. Right? Remember, this was a lot of consolidation, a lot of chop when the daily time frame was in between this range. Once we broke outside this range, we end up having a really nice push lower. Now you can see the markets are gravitating back up inside this, a lot of volume, right? A lot of consolidation. So now if the market wanted to push back higher, right, it's going to take a little bit longer now just because we're back inside this consolidation and there's a lot of volume in this general area. So as you can see for the overall markets currently just back inside this 21,400, the next level of support really for the NQ is going to be all the way back down in towards your 2573. If we're not able to hold key levels on the lower time frames, right, this is going to be the next logical level of support. So let's go back onto the lower time frames here. Let's go back onto the 1 hour time frame here as well. So for the NQ coming into today and for this week, the key levels that I have marked out is going to be this 21 to 20, and then this level all the way down in towards your 2990. And then the last level of support is going to be all the way back down in towards your 2500. So coming into this week, currently we're showing a little bit more weakness compared to the overall SPY. The key levels I'm going to have marked out is going to be your Tuesday's key pivot points along with your Wednesday's lows here as well. So currently in the pre-market, you can see we are dropping underneath your 2240. This is going to be the key level coming into today. If we can reclaim this key level, I like to see this push back up in towards your last week's highs. If we stay heavy right off the start, potentially we could see a move down in towards, it's going to be your pre-market lows and then all the way back down in towards your Monday's highs. Last Monday's highs being that 2960. So we'll keep an eye out on this 21240, at least on the higher time frames. That's really going to be key coming into this week. You can see the NQ is a little bit weaker than the ES made a brand new high to end off the week. You can see the NQ was unable to make a brand new high, so that's why currently we're underneath your Tuesdays and also Wednesdays lows, whereas the ES, as you can see, we're just right at your Tuesdays and Wednesdays highs. So that's what we have for the NQ coming into today. Keep an eye out on this 21240. If we look for right the Qs, the QQQ chart, the key level today is going to be, let me actually get rid of a few lines here. The key levels today for the QQQ is going to be this 513. This 513 is going to be key here for the Qs. Let me actually draw at this level here as well. So for the QQQ, the key level today is going to be your 513. Right, the 513 level has to hold and reclaim if you want to see a pushback towards the upside, just because this is your pivot point from last week. We're underneath now your previous day lows. We're underneath your Wednesday's lows here as well. What we like to see is a reaction off of this 513.90. If we stay heavy underneath your 513.90, the next level is going to be all the way back down in towards your 508.60s. So as you can see right here, this is basically your Monday's highs of last week. There's not too much volume in this general area. So if the market does want to push right off the bat and stay heavy, you could see this move lower down in towards your 508. If we can reclaim this level, there's a big gap back towards the upside. Most likely what is going to happen is the markets are most likely going to stay heavy right off the bat. So most likely we will see this push down in towards your pre-market lows. Could we see your Monday's lows of last week? That is a potential opportunity that we could be looking for, but it's really just going to be the reaction off your 513.90 coming into market open. So we'll see if the market does want to stay heavy underneath your 513.90. And then for the SPY, the key level, if I'm going to look to short something, it's going to be the QQQ, since we're a little bit weaker than the SPY. If I'm going to look to long, I'd like to long the SPY above your last Tuesdays and Wednesdays highs. So that's what I have for the major indices. Do you think the market will stay red here a while based on the credit score? Yeah, so right now the market, if we do push lower, just based off the higher time frames, I do expect any overall dips to get bought up on the overall market. So as you can see here on the higher time frames, any sort of dip that we do have is going to be very bullish, that we're going to be looking for this continued push back up and towards the highs that I'd like to see the market gravitate towards. So you can see big push higher. You can expect a little bit of reaction. The next logical level of support is someone all the way back down in towards this 21,600. If we look at this SPY chart on the daily time frame, the support level now is going to be this 574. Also this gap level here as well. So this is your best buying opportunity, is going to be down in towards your 574 here on the SPY. And for the QQQ, it's going to be back down in towards, right, similar thing, this gap level. If we can push back down in towards this gap, right, this is going to be a really good buying opportunity for a higher low, continue push higher. I'm new here. According to your trading strategy, if a stock with news big gap, then it's not tradable because it won't probably touch your previous day high and previous day low. Yeah, generally speaking, if you have a big gap in the market, then you're going to be looking for a potential other setup, which can be a gap and go. But the best trading opportunities are going to occur around its previous day highs and lows. If there's a big gap, then you're going to either be looking for a gap and go or a fade, a potential gap fill or gap and go. All right, let's go on to some of the tech names that we do have. I've been following your content, really interested. Can you please let me know during trading? Yeah, that one's in the description. What's your offset for a fast entry? For a fast entry, sometimes you have to be a little bit more aggressive. You only have to be more aggressive if you have an opening play, which happens within the first 30 minutes. Generally speaking, you'd much rather wait for the first 30 minutes to play out. You have to have kind of strict criteria to look for an opening play, which is either like an opening drive, gap and go, You have your gap fill, but that's really based off of the higher time frames. All right, let's see. Thesis for this coming week here on Tesla. Right now, you can see that Tesla's having a nice push towards the upside on the overall markets. Once we're able to reclaim above the 290, we shot up towards 320. Now with Tesla holding about 320, what I like to see is a push potentially up towards that 370. So for Tesla, now you can see if I actually go onto the daily time frame, remove a few drawings here, Tesla reclaimed a couple key areas, being that 320. The next level is going to be all the way back up and towards 380. So for Tesla, let's go on to the lower time frames here. Let's turn back on the drawings. As you can see last week, once we're able to break back above your your 290 key level base, nice continuation higher. Now for Tesla, the key levels that I do have marked out is going to be this 320 along with this 338. So this is your last week's Tuesday's highs. You can see we have multiple touches here as well. What I'd like to see on Tesla for any sort of continued push higher is the reclaim back above this 336. So for Tesla, if we want to see upside, we're going to have to break back above, reclaim your 336 for this push back up and towards your 350 here. So that's going to be key on the overall markets. The reclaim of this 336 coming into this week. If we stay heavy, then the next best buying opportunity is going to be down in towards, it's actually going to be down towards this 323. So this 323, I might have to adjust this level, but it's basically your 323 here on Tesla. And that's going to be still, right, if you kind of zoom out, just your higher lows are being built. And you like to see the markets really gravitate back towards the upside. So for Tesla, we're going to be looking for the buying opportunity back down in towards this 328, or we're going to look for the reclaim back above your 338 for this push back up and towards 350 and above. So we'll keep an eye on Tesla coming into today. As for the overall market, similar thing as well, right? You could be looking for that opening play towards the downside coming to market open, or you're just going to be waiting for higher time frame opportunities to kind of trade this back higher. So coming to today, you're going to be looking for kind of this opening play lower, or if you skip out on that opening play and just let the market kind of digest over the weekend, then you can look to buy that dip down in towards that 328, same as the overall market. Let's go on to the NVIDIA chart. Thesis for this coming week, very nice push towards the upside last week on NVIDIA. Once we're able to reclaim above 120, we had a nice push back towards the upside. The next levels are back towards the left from March and then all the way back towards all-time highs. The hold above 135 can send this back towards the 141. So for NVIDIA, key levels I have in this case, if I remove the drawings, number one is this old level that we broke underneath, right? Your 128 plus this gap fill here as well. So as you can see, NVIDIA, we're just right back inside this consolidation period after we had that nice push higher. Now let's see if we can have all dips get bought up for this continued push higher. So for NVIDIA, if I go back onto the lower time frames here, let's go into the 1 hour chart. This is your key level of support. So as you can see, Monday, we ended up having a gap. Tuesday, nice push higher here as well. Now we're just right back inside this 130. So you can see Wednesday, Thursdays, Fridays price action, basically just consolidation all of last week. Now this is the first dip here on the higher time frames. Let's see if this dip gets bought up for this continued push back up and towards your 137 here on NVIDIA. So I do like this right now, currently just right back inside of your key level support. Right, this level for me has to hold on NVIDIA. If we break underneath your 130, we can see a big push lower down towards the downside. But that's why this level has to hold, is going to be this 130. If this 130 holds, we can see this push back up and towards. Now it's going to be your previous day lows and potentially your previous day close here and above. So that's what I have here on NVIDIA. I like to see the hold of your 130 coming into market open. Let's go into the next charts. Apple. Thesis for this coming week, right now you can see that Apple is lagging the overall markets. Currently, we're having a tough time getting above the 214. That is the area we broke down from earlier and the earnings high. What I like to see coming to next week is the reaction that we have off of the 214. So for Apple, this one's been lagging the overall markets. Now you can see with the markets dropping, Apple is pushing lower here as well. Key levels for Apple that's having a tough time is getting above this 214. You can see this is your earnings high. We also have multiple touches here as well. Now, what I'd like to see is really the reaction that we have off 210. So 210 was a key pivot point coming to last week. Now we're actually underneath their previous day lows, underneath this 210 as well. Now it's just gravitating back down and towards that 206. For Apple, this one does seem a little bit heavier. Now the next key level is going to be this 207. If this 207 level doesn't hold, you can see this big push down in towards this gap that we've created. If we hold this 206, then you'd like to see this push back up and towards your 210, and you'd really like to see the reclaim back above your 210 for any sort of continued push back towards the upside. So we can now mark out this low, which is just going to be your 207, your low from last week, May 12th lows. Let's go into the next chart that we do have, Meta. Sorry, let's go into AMD first. Right now, you can see that AMD had a nice push towards the upside on the overall markets. Once we broke above your 115 key level, that was good for a push back up and towards your 122 gap fill. Now that it's filled the gap, we're pushing back down in towards your 115. That is the key level moving forward that I like to see AMD hold if you want to see any sort of move back higher. So for AMD, as you can see here, last 20 to 40 days on AMD, we actually finally showing some strength here. We're reclaiming above a couple key levels. This is your earnings all the way back from February. As you can see, we have multiple touches around this 115. So what I'd like to see is a hold now of your 115. So your 115 is now the hold of this key level. What I like to see coming to this week is the hold above this 115 for any sort of continued push higher. So the reclaim of this key level is going to be super important coming into at least today and moving forward. What I like to see is the hold, as I mentioned, of this 115 general area. If we break underneath your 115, then we're just going to come right back down in towards the next level, which is going to be down towards this 113.20. If we can hold above your 115, we can see this push back up in towards is going to be this previous day close and above. So that's what we have here for AMD. I really like this one on the higher time frames. If it can base above right after earnings, very nice continued push higher. If we can consolidate above this 115, potentially we can form a bull flag above this level. I like this for a push back up and towards your last week's highs and above, being that 122. So if we can base above this level, kind of consolidate above this 115, I like for AMD for a push back up and towards your 122, just based off the higher time frames. Let's go into the next chart here, Meta. Nice gap up above 600 key level on Meta. Now they're above 600 and we broke down, which is the level that we broke down from. What I like to see moving forward is a hold of your 600 higher low for a push higher. I would like to see the 630 level hold as your pivot level from April. So for Meta, as you can see here on the daily time frame, what we have in this case, we have a couple levels. We have your 630 and then your level all the way down, which is your 600. That's also where your gap level is as well. So for Meta coming into this week, as you can see so far, we're just consolidating around your Friday's lows along with your Monday's key pivot level here as well. This is going to be key. If we reject off of your 630, potentially we could see this push down in towards your 600, which is your gap that we created over from last week. If we can reclaim this 633, potentially we can see this push back higher, back up in towards your Friday's highs and above if you can reclaim back above this 630 key level here on Meta. This one's a little bit weaker, so most likely if it does stay heavy, the next best buying opportunity is going to be down in towards that 600. And then we can go on to Amazon. Amazon, nice gap over the weekend and push right off the bat above your 206. Now they can see we're beginning to break back underneath this key level. We do have this huge gap back towards the downside. What I like to see is the reaction off 206. So if we're looking at Amazon, higher time frames, as you can see, key level 206, we tried holding it right off the bat, nice push higher. Once we got underneath it later into the week, now you can see that Amazon is staying heavy. So this is your key level, this is your Monday's lows. Later into the week, we're staying heavy underneath this 206. Now you can see the overall markets are dropping lower here. For Amazon, now it's going to be your last week's lows. If we maintain underneath this 203, you can see this push down in towards your 194, which is your higher time frame gap. So we can mark this out. It's going to be your Thursday's lows. At least for downside, that's going to be your key level. For any sort of upside, it's going to have to reclaim back above your last week's lows and then also reclaim back above this 206. So Amazon, one of the weaker tickers here. So you could be looking for a potential pop and fade off of your last week's lows for this continued push down in towards your 200 and below, being that full gap fill. So we can keep an eye out on Amazon if the markets do want to stay heavy coming into this morning. As for a few other tickers, Microsoft still holding up compared to the overall market. So any dip on Microsoft, you like to see a push back up and towards that all-time highs. As for Google, a little bit messy on the charts, but for Google, the key levels that we do have, if you zoom out just a little bit, is now we're just kind of flirting in between this earnings high and low. So earnings high, we end up taking out this key level last week, which is your 166, but currently we're breaking underneath it. Now the next level is here for Google. If we break back underneath this 164, is going to be all the way back down in towards this 160, 170 here for Google. So those are the levels, as at least for Netflix, all-time highs. Netflix, I like to see this retest of your previous all-time highs. So as you can see right here, multiple touches. Now for Netflix, I'd like to see a hold of your 160s for this pushback towards the upside here. So that's what I have for Netflix. At least that's all the major tech names coming into this morning. We're just going to be looking for the reaction off of your 514 here on the Qs, and then SPY, it's going to be your last Tuesdays and Wednesdays highs. I do expect a potential kind of opening play towards the downside. Overall, I'm still bullish on the higher time frames, and I do expect all dips to get bought up. Potentially, we could see a little bit of a morning flush with the news that we had over the weekend. So we're going to be looking for potentially the opening play lower, but overall on the higher time frames, we're just going to be looking to buy major dips to kind of swing this back towards the upside. Along with tech names, Tesla, I'm going to be looking to see if it can reclaim back above your 336. And then for NVIDIA, I do like NVIDIA off your 130. That's going to be your key level. At least for the rest of the names, like Amazon, this one staying heavy compared to the overall market. So you keep an eye on this 202. And then for AMD, I like this one if we can consolidate a little bit more on the higher time frames for this pushback up towards 122. Okay. I'm going to grab some water here. If you guys do have any charts, you guys can drop them in the chat. Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. Let's see. Daily win rates. Let's see. And I make one mistake every month. I will take my profit. I'll fix some. Yeah, Wayne, that's like a really good, like win percentage wise, it's all based off of math. So if you send the statistics, I think it'll be very easy to see your profit factor. Your win rate's one thing, but then your risk reward and profit factor is something else as well. Someone answer my question. Let's see. Yes, that one's in the description. Let's see one more. And Scarface, yes, that is correct. Are you holding Apple? Yes, I have some apples. Most likely this one's just going to expire. We'll see what happens off this 207. Most likely it's showing some relative weakness compared to the overall market. It's going to have to reclaim back above your 210 for me. Sorry, 210 for me to be interested. Okay. Have you made a video on volume price analysis, VPA? I personally don't use the volume. I think you're talking about the volume profile. I personally don't use it. I used to use it. Basically, you can see it based off the chart in itself. It's just an added extra confluence. But I know some people that do use it. All right, let's go over some tickers here. Let's first start off on, let's go over some of these ones. Palantir. So Palantir, this one hit all-time highs last week, 130. Now this one's pulling back just a little bit. Higher time frames in this case, we're breaking back underneath this 125, which is your previous all-time highs. That's a level we like to see hold. Now we're currently breaking back underneath your 125. So for Palantir, we'd like to see the reclaim for this, this pushback towards the upside. So this is a key level for Palantir, your 125.40. If you can reclaim back above your highs, we can see this push higher. If we can't hold above your 125 and we stay heavy, we're just going to push back down in towards your area that we really broke out from, which is going to be back down towards that 120. So I'd like to see Palantir reclaim that 125. If it doesn't, it's going to come all the way back down and towards that 120. That's your key level on the higher time frames. Let's go over MSTR. MSTR, the key levels is going to be this 404. You can see MSTR starting to slow down just a little bit here. Multiple touches. Potentially you have this bigger head and shoulders in play if we're not able to reclaim back above your 404. So your 404 is going to be key for potential invalidation of this head and shoulders. If we do stay heavy, potentially we can see this push back down in towards is going to be this 376 here on MSTR. As for coin, this one I've been bullish on. Every dip's just going to get bought up. This one, the news that we had, which was the S&P inclusion in the S&P 500, very bullish. Now you can see we tapped in towards that that 267, which is a key area, also the area that we broke down from earlier in February. And this is the exact area you're having a little bit of reaction on here on coin. So coming into this name, what we like to see now after hitting your main objective is to see if every dip gets bought up. So for coin, now what we like to see, just higher lows be built off of your 242, reclaim back above. Now it's going to be this 268 for this continued pushback towards the upside here. So that's what I have for coin. As for hood, this one, a lot of these names like hood, Palantir, hymns, right? You just expect most dips to get bought up. So higher time frame hood, this one looks really good. You have your all-time highs here. Your next key level support down and towards your 52. What I like to see eventually is this cup and handle, right? This cup and handle form, and we push back up and towards your all-time high. So if we go back onto hood, key levels in this case, we're going to have marked out is going to be your 59.50. This is your last Monday's high. So it's your last Monday's highs. If we can hold above your last Monday's highs, we can see this nice reclaim push back up and towards your 62 and above. If we get underneath your last Monday's highs, we're going to see this push down in towards your Wednesday's lows and potentially all the way back down in towards your 56. Regardless, right now, it's a little bit more neutral on the 1 hour time frame. Daily chart, right? Any sort of dip on the daily time frame, you like to see get bought up for a push back higher. Let's go on to a few other names like AVGO. A couple of these ones that are pushing lower now, you like to just mark out your last week's key levels. In this case, AVGO is going to be all the way back down in towards your 217. And they can also mark out your Tuesday's low here as well, which is going to be this 222. So for AVGO, well underneath your previous day lows here. Now what you like to see pop and fade down in towards that 217 here, which is your higher time frame gap. All right, let me kind of scroll up here. Can you look at gold? At least for gold, this one. So this one, down close candles, respecting higher time frame point of interest. Now we're reclaiming key levels here as well. What I like to see, at least on this name, is a hold above your 3,200. So your 3,200 is key. You can see how many touches we've had around this general level, right? Once we broke underneath it, very nice push lower. Now, since we've reclaimed this key level, you can see hold of your 3,200 for this continued push back higher. Now, if we go on to the higher time frames, what we can have marked out is going to be this key level, basically your 3,260. So your 3,260 here, if we go back onto the 1 hour chart, is going to be fairly important. We're basically currently in between this 3,200 and this 3,260. These are the key levels you're going to be looking for, right? The bounce off your 3,200 or the rejection off your 3,260. For any sort of continued push higher now, you like to see it above your 3,260 for this push back towards the upside here on gold. Based off of this daily time frame, what I do expect a lot more consolidation. So now, after we had that nice extension move higher, we're just going to consolidate in this general area and then eventually potentially have a breakout back towards the upside. But you can see it's going to take a little bit longer just because we're going to consolidate in this general area here for gold. As for Costco, this name looks really good here as well for a potential push back up and towards all-time highs. This one finally, once we broke above, basically use this general area as a retest, which is your 1,000 key psych. Now for Costco, I'd like to see it push back up and towards your key pivot levels being that 1050 and above being that all-time high. So for Costco, I'd like to see number one, the break and hold above your last week's highs. So for Costco, we can mark out this general area. I like to see a hold of your 1018. Your 1018 is also your gap fill here on the daily time frame. Hold above your 1018 for this push back up and towards your last week's highs and above. And then eventually, right, your 1050 and potentially this all-time highs here on Costco. LLY, this one, higher time frames, is just bouncing off the lows. So LLY, higher time frames, right, just consolidating in between this range. in between the highs, in between the lows. I expect it to bounce off the lows. Currently, you can see we're just bouncing off this general area. What we'd now like to see is the break back above. It's going to be the area that we broke down from. So you can mark out this general area, which is going to be this 770, which we can drag over 770, multiple touches for LLY. Any sort of continue push higher is going to have to break back above your 770 for this continue push higher. Okay, let me go over. Yeah, are you aware? I did actually see that. That's crazy. The AI tools and how there's so many scammers out here nowadays. Someone had an ad. If you guys didn't know, someone like took one of my videos and did like an AI or I don't know what it was. It was like they took my video and they had like an AI face, or they changed my face and they used it as an ad, which is crazy. As for CRWV, so this one is one of my favorite tickers. I talked about this one on Friday, potential day 2 earnings play for a push right off the bat, right? Day 2 earnings play, break above your earnings day high, which was your 68. This can launch us back up towards your earnings high. And that's what it did. Currently, as you can see, it's coming back to retest this earnings high. So this is going to be really key coming to market open. This can be a really good trading opportunity. Hold of your earnings high for a push back up and towards your 80 and above. If we break underneath your earnings high, then you can see a sharp reversal back towards the downside, back down and towards that earnings low, being 64 and below. So this one's going to have a really nice trading opportunity coming to market open around your earnings high, either a hold for a push higher or the break back underneath. You can see this nice trade lower here as well. So that's what I have for CRWV. All right, let me go over a few more tickers here as well. Let me scroll down. Hood went over that one. INTC. Yeah, for INTC, this one always is just basically consolidating. It hasn't really done too much. Just in between. It also had earnings not too long ago. Just unable to get above this tariff news high back here as well. So you can see a bunch of kind of key levels in this general area. We're just consolidating in between the range that we've created, which is a fairly big range. So right now in equilibrium, not too much to talk about here for Intel. It's just going to consolidate in this general area. Let me just go over, let me actually go over BABA, some Chinese names. In this case, BABA had earnings not too long ago, dropping towards the lows here after earnings. Key levels that we do have is this big gap that we actually are filling currently. So for BABA, we had this gap towards the downside. We actually just filled it coming into market open. So this is our key level that we have marked out, your 121.40. This is the area that we broke out from. Now the next level is going to be down in towards that 117. So that's what we have here for BABA. The next level is going to be that 117.40. So after 121, if you can hold above it, potentially we can see this push back up and towards your previous day close and your previous day lows. If we stay heavy underneath your 121, the next level is going to be down in towards that 117.40s. Let's go over a few other tickers. MU, what I like to see hold of this 94. So MU is not, it's holding up compared to the overall market, still building up these higher lows. What I like to see this higher low be built off your 94 for a push back up towards your 98 here for MU. For TSM, a little bit of rejections off this 194. We do have this pretty big gap lower here as well. So for TSM, we like to see really hold of this level of support, which is now going to be used for potential move higher. If not, we're just going to come fill the gaps that we have. As for HIMS, if we go into the higher time frames, this one holding up fairly strong. So for HIMS, you can see overall market dropping. HIMS only down around 4% here, which is not that much. Higher lows being built. HIMS, I like to see a hold of your 58 for eventually this push back up and towards your 64 and your all-time highs being your 73. So that's what you have on HIMS. All right. Let me kind of go over my game plan once more coming to market open, and then I'm going to get ready for the open today. So coming into this morning here on the SPY and Q, so we had some news over the weekend. Right now, currently, we're underneath key levels. So we're underneath this 514 coming to market open. There's only two possibilities here for the Qs, is the opening potential play lower down in towards your pre-market lows. back in towards this 508 here, or we're going to instantly get bought up. If the first basically the first 15 to 30 minutes is bullish, we're going to see this nice push back up in towards your basically your previous day lows and potentially this previous day close here. So for the Qs, keep an eye out on this 514. Preferably you want to wait for the first 15 minutes to play out to see if we're going to have that opening play lower, or we're going to get bought up and we're going to look for that gap fill back towards the upside. For SPY, the key level in this case is going to be this 598. So SPY is the main ticker that I'm going to be looking for if I'm going to trade this back higher and look for potential gap fill. If I'm looking for a gap and go and a potential fade off of your 514, I'm going to look for the QQQ. So if I'm going to short anything, I'm going to short the Qs. If I'm going to long something, I'm going to long SPY above your Tuesdays and Wednesdays highs, at least for the major tickers. Tesla, I like this one for a reclaim of your 338. This one looks good. Nvidia looks good for a hold of this 130. Apple, it's going to have to reclaim back above this 210. As for Microsoft consolidating, Google, not too much to talk about on this one. The only names I'm really going to be focused on, Tesla, Nvidia. Amazon does look good for a continuation lower if the market does want to stay heavy, just because this one's showing some weakness last week, showing some weakness in the pre-market here as well. If the markets do want to stay heavy, we could be looking for Amazon fade off of your 202.69 for continuation lower. And then AMD, if it does consolidate, I like to see this form a bull flag above your 115 here on AMD. So tickers today, we're just going to focus here on the major indices, Tesla, Nvidia, just buying dips. So the major thing here is just buying dips on the higher time frames. So if the higher time frames pulls back based off of the daily time frame, I'm just going to be looking to buy dips to swing this back towards the upside. So that's what the game plan is kind of this week moving forward here as well. Let's see. Yeah, that's going to be the game plan moving forward. Higher time frames, very still much intact on the daily time frame. You're just going to be looking for major dips to trade this back towards the highs here on the overall markets. All right. Yeah, that's going to be it for me today. I'm going to get ready for market open here. If you guys did enjoy that, I'd appreciate if you guys drop me a like and sub. We're, I think, a couple K off 100K, which is super exciting. So yeah, that's going to be it for me. Which settings are you using to get this video chart? Black and white and candles. It's just in the settings. You can customize it, right? Body, colors, borders, wicks here as well. It's just customization on TradingView. I could potentially share the layout if you guys would like as well. All right, that's going to be it for me. And I will see what expiration dates, weeklies, on Fridays. Also as well, if you guys haven't joined the watch list, just have a free watch list every single morning, just going over a couple of names I'm looking for. So yeah, that's going to be in the description, and I will see you guys all tomorrow morning. All right, take care, everyone.